This is the biggest homework package you've had yet, which means the participation among non-honors and honors alike will drop off the wall here. And I'll start on the back and work my way forward. Given that p is a positive number, n is a negative number, and the absolute value of p is greater than the absolute value of n, which of the following expressions has the greatest value? So here's kind of an ACT technique. You make up numbers. Never use 0 or 1. Okay? Now it says p is positive, n is negative. And the absolute value of p is greater than the absolute value of n. Which means like if n was -2, p would have to be at least 3. I hope you get that. So I'm going to let p be 3. I'm going to let n be -2 because it talks about n being negative. So I'm making up numbers. You never use your own one. And I'm going to take those things and I'm just going to plug them in. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to evaluate what happens. If I choose choice F, I'd have the absolute value of 3 minus a -2 over a 3, which is going to end up being 5 over 3. Plug into G. Very similar here, except we're dividing by a -2. So it's 3 minus a -2 over a -2. That ends up being, this is absolute value by the way, that ends up being the absolute value of -5/2, which is 5/2. That's winning so far. That's bigger than 5/3. I hope you understand that. If I go with H, what am I looking at? P plus N. Well, this would be 3 plus a -2 over P minus N, which is 3 minus a -2. Again, we still have absolute value. That ends up being the absolute value of 1/5, which is a fifth. Losing, losing. G is winning. G probably does win. Choice J, again, I just plug in. That one's definitely a loser. 3 plus a -2 over 3. It's the absolute value of a third, which is a third. Losing. And then choice K. P plus N over N. This is also a loser. This is 3 plus a -2 over a -2. That ends up being the absolute value of a -1/2, which is a half. Now, I really mean this because, 80% of the population would say that 5/3 is bigger than 5/2. It's not. If you're an honors kid, college bound, you need to sit there and figure out why 5/2 is bigger than 5/3. So choice G. Given that f of x is x squared minus 4 and g of x is x plus 3, what are all the values of x for which f composed of g of x is 0? Well, this is kind of notation that you've done a little bit of. If it's written like this, it'd make more sense. G of x was x plus 3. So we're going to find f of x plus 3, which means that everywhere we see an x, we become x plus 3. Yeah, when we FOIL that out like old Jesus himself would do, we get x squared plus 6x plus 9, then minus 4. X squared plus 6x plus 5. All right? And remember, they want to know when this thing's equal to 0, and you know how to factor. That's x plus 1, x plus 5. So your x values are -1 and -5. Choice A. What is the 275th digit after the decimal point in the repeating decimal point 6295? So what I notice here is we have 4 positions. So I'm thinking to myself, how many times is 4 under 275? I had it and then I lost it. So I'm just going to do long division here. We got 6, 24, 35, 8. Okay, cool. It goes in 68 times with a remainder of 3. So I go to the third decimal place. Hope that makes sense. This thing repeats 68 times, but then we have a remainder of 3. So I go to that third decimal place. It's 9. 51. 12 jurors are needed for an upcoming trial. The diagram below illustrates a part of the process. The 12 jurors will be selected from a jury pool of 60 people. The court records show a trend that only 40% of people who are summoned for jury duty actually appear. And of the people who appear, 1/3 are excused. If this same trend continues, how many people should be summoned to have as close to possible as 60 people in the jury pool? Okay, so we'll just do this with algebra. We need 12 jurors. Oh, we need 60 people. All right. We got to have 60 people. So we have a goal of 60. It says only about 40% of those who are summoned for jury duty actually appear, and of the people that appear, 1 in 3 are excused, which means we keep 2 and 3. All right. Only 40% show up. That's 4/10, which is 2/5. So what we do is we start with some big number x. You can use letter n. Only 2/5 of them actually show up, and then we only keep 2/3 of them. There's your setup. X times 2/5 times 2/3 is 60. So I've taught you guys how to work with this all year long. You'd multiply everything by, if you do a little bit of multiplication here, you'd have x times 4/15, 60. You'd 15 both sides. 4x is 15 times 60, what, 900? Then you divide out your 4. You get 225. So that's the algebra on that one. Hope it makes some sense. Here we have a multi-part question. Look at the god awfulness of this text. So the quadratic function f and triangle MPQ are graphed in a standard xy coordinate plane below. Points M with coordinates 2a 5b, n 4a 9b, right up top, up here, and 6a 5b are on the function. Point 4a 0 is not on function f. In terms of A and B, what is the area in square coordinates of triangle MPQ? It's actually not a hard problem, but it's the notation that makes this thing horrible. You know full well that the area of a triangle is 1/2 base height. All right? This base right here travels from 2a to 6a. So the base would be 4a's because 6a minus 2a is 4a. So half of 4a. The height, we travel from 0 to 5b. Then we just do the math here. I mean, that's 10ab, isn't it? Like, obviously, right? It is obviously 10ab. 4 times 5 is 20. Half of 20 is 10. A times b is ab. So it's not that bad a problem. It's just they throw this funky notation at you. That's why kids usually say it's hard. They don't understand what's going on. Point M will remain fixed, and point Q will move to the right along the x-axis. As Q continues to move to the right, which of the following statements describes what happens to MQ? Well, that's not too bad. It's not bad at all. So as this thing moves right, what's happening is our rise stays the same essentially, but the rise is fixed. But the run is longer. And by the way, it is going downhill. The slope is always negative. So anything that talks about increasing is gone, okay? Well, hold on here. I might need to reread this. The slope will decrease. The slope actually becomes less negative, doesn't it? It's getting less steep. So the idea of this is the slope is less steep. I'm actually going to go back and think about what I was thinking here. It will decrease and eventually be negative. It was already negative. It will decrease but never be negative. is negative, it will stay the same is obviously not a choice. I accidentally marked off two choices, and one of them's the answers. It's got to be D. There's no way that slope's ever positive. It is actually increasing because it's getting less and less steep. That one threw me for a loop. One of the following values is equal to f of 5a. Which one? Well, that's not that hard. This is where 5a is, right? Jump up here, 5b. That was actually really, really easy. It's just they threw you off by throwing weird things at that grid. So none of those were actually too particularly hard of problems. They just had some ugly looking stuff going on with them. And I'm willing to bet if I was your age, that'd throw me off too. I don't like it now. 47. In a window display at a flower shop, there are 3 spots for 1 plant each. To fill these 3 spots, Emily has 6 plants to select from, each of a different type. Selecting from the 6 plants, Emily can make how many possible display arrangements with 1 plant in each spot? Note, the positions of the unselected plants do not matter. So she's doing what we call a combination, because it said it does not matter. If we get to this before you end a course test, it'll be right before you end a course test, and it'll be after you take the ACT. We're doing what's called a combination. We're doing a 6 choose 3. Now, there is a math formula for this. I'll be darned if I can think off the top of my head, though. I think it's n factorial. Yeah, see, I forgot what the denominator looks like. But it's 6 choose 3. TI-84 is out. You go to Math, Probability, and there she is, NCR. This was a 6 choose 3. 20 combinations. Which is an answer. You know why? Because we don't need to do all this. We have 3 spots. ACT is not going to do combinations and permutations. We have 6 spots. The first time you get 6 choices, the second time you get 5, the third you get 4th. You multiply them together. That was just a straight up permutation. Glad that answer wasn't there. Look at me not knowing something. 46. Mary, James, and Carlo sold 1/4 page advertisements for the school yearbook. Mary sold twice as many as Carlos. I can already tell y'all don't like these. And James sold 3 times as many as Mary did. What fractions of these advertisements did Carlos sell? This should work a lot like your work problems. It should. Carlos is my unknown, right? He's my ex. Mary sold twice as many as Carlos did, so Mary is 2x. Actually, it works nothing like those work problems. And James sold 3 times as many as Mary did. So James sold 6x. Well, that'll do it. We just set this thing equal to 1. 2x plus 6x plus x is 1. That'll give us 9x is 1. Carlos sold 1/9. Easy peasy. For all x not equal to plus or minus y, there's a reason for that, because if x was negative y, this would be 0, and if x was y, we'd have a 0 here. You can't divide by 0. What is this thing equivalent to? You can do a technique like I did on 54 if you wanted to, where I made up numbers, just don't use 0 and 1. But honestly, this one, you should be able to do this by hand. To add 2 fractions together, you have to seek a common denominator. So what we do is we multiply this piece by x minus y, and we multiply this piece by x plus y. Then we just crank out the algebra. That's all we do. This would give me x squared minus y plus yx plus y squared, sitting pretty over x squared minus y squared. Now, let's see what happened. Oh, That's supposed to be a minus yx, right? These pieces cancel out. By the way, I foiled down here. If you don't know what I did, I foiled. I just didn't write it all out. And this stuff came from there, and this stuff came from there. That's distributive property. Those are gone. I have x squared plus y squared over x squared minus y squared, which is choice E. 44, this is like a solution problem. I haven't done one of these in years. A barrel contains 25 liters of a solvent mixture that is 40% solvent and 60% water. Lee will add pure solvent to the barrel without removing any of the mixture currently in the barrel, so the new mixture will contain 50% solvent and 50% water. How many liters of pure solvent should Lee add to create this new mixture? Okay, so I'm going to start this off by talking about what's on the right-hand side. The barrel starts with 25 liters of water, and he's going to add X liters of pure solvent. Now, the barrel is currently made up of a mixture that is 40% solvent and 50% water. You can actually use your TI-84 for this, but like if you take 40% of 25, you get a 10, right? There's already 10x and then 15 gallons of water. And he's also going to be adding X gallons of pure solvent to the left. And I need to stop on this one because the dog just rang and I'm about to have kids. So, cool. I'll probably erase everything I just did there because I just noticed something.